pre-pandemic?
I don't even know, like 20 years ago.
I would actually say yes.
I feel like there are.
Yeah. My theory on that is, and that's a good observation, is positive reinforcement has taken the world by storm.
Okay.
So it's kind of like now with kids, I think I was just talking to someone about this earlier, like I guess you can't spank your kids now or something like that.
No.
Yeah, and in schools, that's what they're having problems with, right?
No, you can't touch them.
Yeah, so when I first went to school.
And you really can't even tell them they did anything wrong.
Are you serious?
I'm a teacher.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah. So,
Jesus.
you know what's interesting, I go back to work and I say a lot of what you say actually makes a lot of sense to me
Yeah.
via kids. Like, you know, you learn a lot more from your mistakes than you do your successes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so you have to like find a way. My parenting style was to allow them to make mistakes.
Sure.
You know, and kind of like hope it wasn't going to be too bad, you know. But no, with kids now, you really can't even tell them. And so you're seeing more and more anxious children too.
Interesting. Yeah, so in the dog training world, it's kind of paralleling kids because I feel like there's waves.
Yep.
Is right now it's a wave of like talking and conversation, I think, and then like positive, no punitive type of things. Which I think what comes down to the child's personality type, and also how the disciplinarian disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I've talked to friends and stuff like that, and I was raised old school, I was spanked, I'm appreciative of it, but my mom did it in a very balanced way.
Right.
I have friends that were over disciplined or not disciplined in a healthy manner, and they have a very negative association with it, right? And then I have other friends that were not disciplined physically, but they were such a soft personality that scolding did work.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if for me, like if I had a kid, if I had 3 kids, like I don't have kids now, but let's say I had a kid that was super stubborn and very hard-headed, and then one that was a very soft personality, I would raise them differently.
Right.
One would most
Absolutely.
likely need spanking, the other one I would be enough for
Absolutely.
scolding, right?
Absolutely.
Dogs, it's similar. You get the occasional dog that will, you know, you can say no and they'll stop. Me personally, because I don't want to say no 100 times, just want to teach you don't do that.
Right.
So then that's where consequence comes into play, but dogs bite each other. You know, there's no real differentiation in dogs. It's if the puppy does something the mom doesn't like, she just bites them. She doesn't care if they're soft or not, but she will bite them appropriately.
She doesn't consider it or anything.
Exactly. The bite would be softer, but it's still a bite. It's still a
Right.
nip, right? It's still physicality.
Well, and when I trained our dogs like 20 years ago, we'd go from like the slip choker to like the prong
Mhm.
collar, and now like we have her aunt, my sister-in-law, is like, you can never use a prong collar. That this is like a big no-no, and I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah, but
it.
I've also watched her like take a spatula and slap the dog in the face when it goes onto the counter. So
But you
to me, it's like I don't understand
No,
at
yeah.
all. Like
And
this is
let me
much
tell you
less-
that was a family event. Everybody almost took her out
Yeah,
with
because it
the
was our
spatula.
dog. It wasn't her dog. So that
Oh.
that was a big
No,
issue
she
for us.
spatulaed our dog.
Oh, and how'd that go down?
Not
Not
well for
well.
her.
Yeah, well, yeah, no. So I'm guessing he like reciprocated or like.
Oh no, we reciprocated.
Oh,
Don't
okay, gotcha.
Don't spatula our dog.
Yeah, but she was just a lab. She's always well behaved, but like loves food. So like we were at our camper and it was like a different environment. It wasn't our house, so she went up for the food and just smacked her in the
On the
nose.
nose.
We
Yeah.
all yelled at her.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was not good.
But
So.
it's interesting that somebody who won't use a prong collar.
We'll use a
Well,
spatula.
Well,
The
this
spatula.
is the craziest thing, okay? So trainers like myself, like there's a guy, Jeff Gilman, who I sent you the video. Did I ever send the Baka videos?
I don't think so.
Okay, you'll probably get him at some point.
Okay.
But Jeff Gilman is he's like probably the most famous dog trainer now, okay? In our time with social media and stuff. And some trainers, positive only, took some stuff of his out of context and made a video, so it looks like he's abusing dogs. And man, he got death threats. He got
I bet.
people trying to break into his facility.
It's the cancel culture.
It's a
It's
cancel culture
super
thing.
crazy, right? Now, it's funny because these very people that tell people not to use punitive measures will very easily tell you to put your dog down if their methods don't work.
Yeah,
That's the craziest thing. It's,
Yeah.
oh, sure, don't use these methods, and if our methods don't work, just kill your dog.
Makes no sense.
Like, it's crazy. It's funny how some people think. It's so funny how they don't see certain things, but unfortunately that's very common, especially in our dog training world. And the more you get involved with it, the more of the craziness you see that's happening. But yes, there's a correlation between that happening in the dog world and of course happening in the world of children.
Yeah.
And when you said there's like more anxious children and stuff,
Yeah, there are.
it's because in my theory, because I see it with dogs, is physicality toughens, right? So it's discipline is a stressor, right? It makes you not feel good within the moment, but then you recover from it and then you learn how to handle it.
Well, and we talk in education about resilience, like in other words, like when you
Yep.
fail or you get hurt, you have to like pick yourself up and move yourself through it, but then the next time you hit some kind of obstacle or problem, you've got experience and you're like, okay, I
It
can
should
get
be
through
easier.
this.
Yes.
Like in a mental toughness, like in an overcoming sense,
Exactly.
you know?
And that's what I train for. We've not seen it yet, but like, this is gonna make a real good video, because I'm gonna, people don't think about scenarios that can potentially happen, like, so let's say the dog running away in fear, whether it be from a firework or something, right?
Sure.
So I had a client just a couple weeks ago, we were just doing long leash stuff, and remember how we were doing the long leash shield
Yes.
last class? So he did really well. Their dog not so well. Okay? So their dog started freaking out, and the owner like, move, tap, and just hear me, move, tap, right? And she's stuck. And she's not, and the dog is like, what the hell's going on? I'm like,
Right.
move, right? So finally she like breaks out of her head and she does it and the dog gets it, right? And I go, how'd that feel? She's like, oh my God, that was so stressful. And I'm like, welcome to real life. Because when you're gonna need your dog to perform, and this was simple, I thought like, this is simple. This was just walk at my side.
Right?
In real life, your dog, because their dog is dog reactive, or was, he's made great progress, but like in case like, something happened, like it's gonna be the same state.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
panic state. And what you're doing is I'm taking a very controlled situation that's putting you in a very realistic situation. So should it happen, one, you're mentally prepared,
Right.
emotionally prepared, but also for your dog it's familiar, higher chance of success, we get our dog back, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Right?
You would probably love the book, it's called How I Survived, and it's all about these different events, like how people survive, like, one of them, the best one I remember the most is this group of people go skydiving,
Mhm.
okay? And all of a sudden the plane is going down, and only 2 people survived.
Oh, well.
And the only person that needed to die was the pilot. Everybody else was experienced skydivers, they all had parachutes on.
Mhm.
And they talk about like your mental state, like
Mhm.
most of the people, like 8, let's say there were 10 people, 8 of them were like, it's a plane crash, oh my God, I'm gonna die, it's a plane crash.
Mhm.
And 2 people went, it's a plane crash, I have a parachute, I'm gonna jump, right? You know, so like the panic, they talk a lot about how panic is actually more likely to kill you than the scenario sometimes. So,
Just get blocked.
because you get blocked, exactly, you get like tunnel vision
For
and
sure.
not noticing all of this.
For sure.
I wanted to ask Jesse though about him and like training out the,
Oh, yeah, so as we're like moving through like socializing him and stuff and getting him to like not be so reactive to other people,
Yeah.
one of my, not like really concern, but like, I guess more curiosity is if I'm walking alone at night or something and I want him
Oh, sure.
to be like that,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Like
I get it all the time.
how does that work? Like is that a separate command that I teach him? Or is it just like he will probably do it anyways?
Okay, look at it this way, right? Dogs see things and humans see things in context.
Mhm.
Okay. We're teaching them in this context, I'm not threatening.
Right,
Okay. This context is very different as opposed to me going, hey, and yelling and
Right.
charging at you. Is he would most likely still be reactive. Because he's like, yo, we've never seen this before, right?
right,
So then I don't stop it. So let's go with the front door. Most of the time when people approach the front door, it's someone we know.
Right.
We're not threatened, right? But the dog blue doesn't know that. But let's say it's off hours or you look at the door and someone's not going to get in and you don't know that person and you don't want to settle blue down, then you don't.
Okay.
Okay, so the way I teach the door exercise, I go, you use it when you need it. If it's something looks suspicious, if it's, I'm gonna check this out first and I want this person to know there is a dog here, then I let the dog bark and I just crack it open. Hi, how are you? How can I help you? So they see the barking dog. And it puts them on edge if they're ill intent or they just don't even bother with it, okay? So when it comes to this, I hope that never happens to you,
Yeah.
but theoretically, because it's so out of the ordinary, as opposed to just walking past people and bikers, right, or people are minding their own business, and someone actively charging or yelling at you, you're still most likely gonna get that response.
Okay,
Okay.
that's kind of what I figured, especially because he's super smart, so he like, a tree fell down in the yard and he was like aware of it today, so I feel like he would know in a situation, like if I'm acting different and like that person's acting different, that he should react, but.
And then we did have a neighbor come over, the neighbor across the fence, that he's real comfortable with dogs, and knock on the door and everything, and she did the back away, and he laid down and let us all.
And he never
talk.
even barked, as
He
soon as
did-
he
yeah, it
came
was-
over,
it
he never
was
even
like-
barked, it was like kind of frustrating, but also really good because he was improving.
Sure, so, not uncommon in the beginning, because everything's still fresh, right? It's discipline. That's why in the beginning, dogs handle remotely,
Yeah,
because they're using more remote than you would in actual life. So once things start to dip down, or like, if you can make it more so unplanned and organic and stuff, then you're gonna most likely see,
More reactivity.
More
blue.
intense.
Yes. So, and if, like, let's say it happens to the point where it's like he does just completely stop the territorial behavior, like I said, I'm not against it. I'm all for it. We would need to build him back up again, which is simple, okay? It's super rare that it would happen that a dog's territorial behavior shuts down simply through discipline and stuff. Typically, if it dips, it'll come back at some point, but if it's like, hey, it's been a few weeks and we practice this all the time and he's still not barking, let me know, and then I'll tell you, like, essentially you would just create suspicion. So when someone rang the doorbell, you'd be like, who's that?
Yeah.
Right? And you
Yeah.
kind of antagonize them.
We do it a little bit like who's home, who's here, when. like,
but it's
who's
usually
home.
positive, not
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, this one's like a who's that, like you're building
Okay.
territorial behavior, right? And then he triggers and he's barking, good boy, and then they don't come in, they leave. So then he goes, oh,
I bark.
you like this,
Yeah,
you like this. But if I see you do this exercise of backing me away, it means I need to stop.
right,
So you're getting the best of both,
okay,
So just keep an eye on that as you practice more. Oh, and going to your thing with the recall, that's very common
Okay.
with the leash thing, because dogs see things in pictures. So when you have the leash on, I know what to do, and when you took the leash off, I don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
It's super common,
Okay.
okay? So for this week, what I would suggest is actually you're trying to build comfort. The comfort of being on the long leash and not being worried that you're gonna have to call them a million times, okay?
Okay.
So then, if possible, if there's anywhere near you where there's like a park or open area, I make that part of my routine where I walk there, put Blue on the long leash, break, and just let him be a dog, right? And I'm holding on to the end of it, and I'm just meandering for 30 minutes, and I might just reel him in and leash him up and walk home, and I stay away from the recall, because you're trying to build comfort.
Yep.
You're trying to make him comfortable being free from you and not being called 100 times,
Right.
okay? So that's why recall does take so long to teach, is because it's not just the practice factor, it's the factor of sometimes the dog is paranoid and doesn't want to leave you, so there's no way to even practice it in the first place.
yeah,
okay?
that happened a little bit, like he would just stick in the 10-foot area around me as we were moving around.
I even go
Yes.
up to that area by the Jewel
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could go a couple different places.
And just, yeah, I would focus on building comfort,
Okay.
letting him be free for a bit, just so he doesn't get too paranoid, but it's super common.
though. Okay.
Okay, other questions?
No, he's letting the cat walk by him too.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
we get better with everything.
Yeah.
Good, that's how it's supposed to work. I wish all my cases were pretty straightforward, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
So this command here is place command, very simple. It gives you stationary control, okay? So you can use this a number of different ways. Let's go to the house, okay? So there's actually a trainer I was ridiculing about this recently, but I'm gonna explain the difference, okay? So he was using this to address a dog chasing a cat within the home.
Okay.
Okay.
So he was like, put your dog on place, your dog is on place, your dog cannot chase your cat. That was the theory, okay? And theoretically, yes, but the dog's not chasing the cat, not because it knows not to, but because it's contained on a specific area, okay? As soon as you release that cat, you can see it in the video, he was gonna chase the cat,
Right.
okay? So then they're using things like leave it and stuff like that, and I go, it's not a part of it. Because if you say leave it, then you always have to say leave it, and then one day he's in the cat's the cat, and you're not gonna be there to say leave
Yeah, we
it, and
tried
lo and
that.
behold, he's
Yeah,
got a snack,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why we correct him for any choices of hunting or predatory or harassing of the cat. No words, because he's thinking it's his behavior that garners the consequence.
Right.
That paired with the way we teach e-collar is how this works, because not everybody uses e-collar the same way, okay?
Right.
So this here is what I call preventative measures. Okay, so we have prevention and intervention, and you want to know both in my book, okay? So the guest coming over, you're doing intervention right now, right? Knock, we would ideally see barking. He's going, who's going on, and you're intervening, and you're going, hey, thanks for letting me know, but cut it out, go here and chill, right? That's your threshold. This would be a preventative measure, so it'd be at 5:30, guest is coming over, 5 o'clock, Blue is already here, and you've already drilled this so much that this is more important to him than the door, okay? However, it does not address the territorial mindset. So he could be on here, the doorbell triggers, and he's like, who is that, right? And be suspicious, and you let them in, and he's not moving, so it can fool the owner thinking everything's fine, and then when they release the dog, there it goes.
Right.
Because nothing stopped territorial mindset. So what I do is one or a blend, but never this by itself. So doorbell, back away, he settles down, and then you could technically do place because you've already settled him down.
Right.
Okay.
Or it would be, I just back him off like you've been doing, and I don't even worry about this. Okay? What I wouldn't do is this to address the door alone.
Okay.
Okay, because this is just, obedience is physical control, behavior is mental control, is how I look at it. Okay, and you always want that mental control. Because if this really mattered and was like super effective and stuff, then what you were doing this week wouldn't have been that effective. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because,
Well, it's like he has a crate, we call it house.
Sure.
Our command is house, and he'll go, like, if you say house, he goes in there, but if somebody comes over, he's crazy in the house, it doesn't, like, in his cage.
Sure.
We're not calming him down.
oh, sure, yeah. 'Cause
So it's
mentally
still
he's-
like
and what-
intense, he's just confined, we don't need to worry about.
Well,
him
and as soon as he's out,
attacking
Yes.
somebody
he's going
when
right
he's in a
back
cage.
at it.
you know?
Yes, and what happens is
It's like
it
a lion
becomes-
in a cage.
Exactly.
You open the door and.
because he gets more frustrated, because now he's contained.
Mhm.
You know, so that separation, and like I had a client who's their previous trainer was like, put your dog behind the gate, and then I was like, that makes the dog worse, and she was like, yes, that's what I thought, and I'm like, yeah, because now there's separation and the dog can't get to the threat, so it's more, there's more stress involved.
Yeah, it's just like him with the neighbor talking over the fence is way worse than if we're on a leash talking to him.
Yes.
Like, way worse.
Yes, so when you start to recognize these things, like this is super common for dogs. So for me, like I already know this stuff. But for people, because they're just thinking, but it's the neighbor's the same. But I go, yeah, but there's a fence in one of those
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah.
That's what's causing the different reaction on behalf of Blue, okay? So once you start to figure those things out, like you'll start to notice that dogs are really easy to understand because they're super, it's always the same stuff, okay? I probably not come across anything new, you know, at least not like mind-boggling new in like, I don't know, 7, 8 years.
Really?
Because in, 2 to 3 years, like I saw like a ton of cases, you know, of human aggression, like fear, nervousness, anxiety, overstimulation and stuff. It's the same.
Yeah.
Because for humans, we're complicated because there's so many factors to us, but not for dogs. Dogs are super simple. So once you understand those core behaviors, everything else is pretty simple. Okay? So, are you familiar with place commands, like just in general?
Not other than sending the dog to the house.
To the house? Okay. So right now I just gave you an example of like where you could apply it. And how I think of this is like, let's say, because right now you've just done backing them up, calming them down, right? But then you also have the factor of socialization, okay, which is going to be its own thing. But like, let's say you have someone come over who's like who's scared of dogs, nervous of dogs, or maybe who's had a negative experience with Blue, okay? And I've had it happen with the client where the dog bit the client's dad. And the dad was like, I'm never coming over if that dog is out. Better put that dog away, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So they did the training, dog was making great progress, and they're like, we would like, you know, to have the family together, including your dad with the dog, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. I was like, you can set it up so that I'll be there, muzzle your dog, or do all these precautions to make your dad feel better. Okay, because you always got to take into account how the human feels. So then, I told him, once your dad sees how much control you have over this dog, you're going to see him open up. Okay, so we had the session, and I used this. I was like, sir, what's your distance of the dog? And he's like, well, it's like 10, 15 feet, whatever, right? And he was clearly unsettled. So then we set it up so that they could place the dog and give the dad space, and the dad could get up and walk by and stuff, and still be within his safe distance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I gave him some other stuff to work on. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and the dad wants to meet the dog because he saw how much control, like the dog was there for hours, not moving, because he used to lunge, bark, obviously bit him, right? But once he saw the shift, then he was like, oh wow, you do have control over your dog. Can we press this, right?
Yeah.
So then I showed him how to correctly introduce him. And that took time. And then all of a sudden now the dog accepted the dad like he accepted the family.
Okay.
But the human was the other part of the process because you have to rebuild trust.
Yeah.
So if we're here with Blue, if you have someone come over who's not so comfortable with dogs or has had negative experience with him, that's where this comes into play.
Yeah, that'd be Elliot, I think.
Yeah.
She'll say she's not nervous, but my guess is, that's when, he went at her face a little bit.
Sure.
She'll say she's not nervous, but my guess is she'll be incredibly nervous, and I would be too,
Yeah, for sure. Because, and even for me, because I've been bitten like a handful of times in my career, recently a dog that's super friendly with me, like jumped at me, and inside internally, I just felt a surge of anxiety.
Sure.
Because this dog bite was like a few months ago. So I'm still recovering mentally from it, even though I know the dog, but I've learned to overcome it. Because I remember the first time it ever happened to me, like I was like, holy shit. And it was a friendly dog. And then I caught myself, I'm like, you stupid idiot. Like it's the dopiest dog here. But because of this, my anxiety level was high. And now I've learned to just suppress it and then just work through it.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is normal, right? So that's where this would come into play. It's super easy to teach, and right off the bat, you can start doing duration work. So like the dogs you pass by, I think it was Echo and Gilly, who are on those placemats and we walk down the middle, right? They'll do that for 2 to 3 hours here in the middle of like play and stuff like that as part of structure, okay? So, and I'll explain how you can cheat the system a little bit. So the first thing we're gonna do here with Blue is, what's your number?
Is 23.
Okay, has that been your working number?
It depends, but it's usually like around 24 to 32.
Okay, let's drop it down. Let's go down to 18 because we're teaching something new, so we always want to dip it down low. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just teach Blue through pressure how to go here. Okay? So what you're going to do is for the first couple, you might have to brace it because sometimes dogs get spooky of the placemat.
Okay.
You're going to choke up higher on your leash so you're closer to his collar. You're not going to say anything, but you're going to have him about a foot to 2 feet of it. You're going to start remoting and lightly pulling towards the placemat, okay? If you start to get resistance, you're going to keep tapping and you're going to have to use more physical to get him to pop onto the area itself. Okay. Once he's on, you'll stop tapping, you're going to relax. If he hops off, we're not going to worry about it for now.
Okay.
He's like, what am I doing?
It's like every time I see Jesse, it's
Something new.
something's up. Yep. And break.
Break.
Now when you do this next one, so that when you kind of walk into it, you want him to move there.
Okay, so I don't pull him or...
You'll pull him, but you did a couple of steps. And so what you did was you built momentum, and then the momentum brought him in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wanting more so like right here. You're gonna stay stationary, tap, 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 tap. Like that. See how that was different?
Yeah.
So here, we had a little bit of resistance, and that's because you're making him figure it out mentally through pressure.
Himself, yeah.
But when you did it the first time, because you walked with him, he was like, oh, okay.
That's
Just
what we're
walk on
doing,
it, not a
yeah.
problem. So we're gonna try that, like just like you did it a
Right.
couple more times. Very good.
Break.
You're at 18, right?
Yeah.
Let's go 21. Good, a couple more.
Break.
Good, and last one.
Break.
Very good. So now we're gonna flip, tap, tap, now put pressure Point towards you. Now wait a moment. Very good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start remoting first, wait, and then add the leash pressure. Okay, and I'm going to have you go about a foot back, like that. Correct.
All right. So do I have to get him off of it then?
Break.
Break.
It's like I was just going to sleep.
I know. That's it. They make up your mind already.
So I'm tapping now.
Yes, and so you're still going to choke up on your leash, so bring them back towards your side. Yep. Yep. And then here, one step back, up there, and you might have to choke up a little bit more. There you go. Start tapping. Tap, 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 tap. And if you can, as you're standing, you're going to like reach over without moving too much forward. Yep, tap, 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 right there. Like that. Very good. Break.
Break.
Good. We're going to do that 4 more times. Right.
Break.
Try switching positions to the placemat. Yep. Good.
Break.
2 more.
Break.
Pull. There you go. Very good.
Break.
Last one. Very good. I'm going to pause right there. Okay. So what we're doing here is teaching Blue there's another answer to the e-collar. Okay? And so we had the walking at my side. We've done to stay, right? So like put your butt down or keep it down. Last week we tested upon the first half of recall. And now we're doing tapping to go to this area. Okay? So most trainers teach the place command like the first time you did it, where you walked up to it.
Yeah.
And I don't do that because one can become a part of the cue. So technically you always have to walk them there.
Right.
Okay? And I want to be able to just send them with the word and not have to do anything. So then I just take away the movement and I just put you about a foot away. So very easy for the dog to figure it out. And then we start to make it progressively more difficult by increasing that distance.
Right.
So if you look at the sessions that we've done and how we've applied the e-collar, it's technically the same thing. All right? So like for the heel, if you're walking this way and Blue goes this way, tension was pulling them back towards you and tapping until they came in, then it stopped. For the recall, we were moving backwards with tension pulling towards us, right? Tapping, and then when you went towards us, the pressure stopped. I think we did the sit with the pushing down or like for the stay. Same concept, right? You're guiding him, and when the tapping happens, once he does it, it stops. Here, you're pulling away from you towards an object, and once he goes there, it stops. So the leash is directional pressure. It's guiding him into what we want him to do. Remote is what I call motivational pressure. He's thinking, oh, it's that annoying thing again. How do I turn that off? Oh, the leash is directing me, and I've done the leash with leash walking, with sitting, and with recall. And when I go with the leash, it tends to go away.
Right.
Boom, same thing, right? So it's the same concept, technically, for the dog. It's just what he's doing is a little bit different, okay? So that's why the stuff progresses so quickly, because it's familiar to him, okay? So here, I'm not worried about saying place yet, because I want to teach Blue, and I want to make sure that when he feels the remote, he's associating going here turns it off. And then I label it place. Okay? So then he knows that going there is what's going to shut off all the remote when he hears that specific cue. Okay? Question so far?
Yeah. No.
So what we're going to do here is you're going to do the same thing. We're going to release him, and I'm going to have you increase just maybe another foot, and we're going to go up from 21, we're going to go up to your usual 24.
Break. So like back here.
Yeah, so you'll be back there, and you can shorten your leash, you can bring them more so towards you. And then, since we're going further, you might find he's going to have a harder time. So when you're doing this and tapping, right, see if you'll figure it out. But if you have to move forward, it's just going to be step. Not to go that way. step, and then maybe he goes.
Okay.
So you're going very slow because you're trying to refrain from using yourself as a part of the command.
Okay.
You know, so the more you make him figure it out, the faster he starts to learn to just go there and go there from a distance, okay? Right there. Tap. Yep, tap. Tap. Yep, and keep your tapping, just reshorten and try again. Tap. Tap. There you go. Good.
Good job. Break.
Yep, and 4 more times.
Break.
Break, 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 break. Yeah, boy. Very good.
Good, go back and do it again. Break. Come on.
3 more times. Break.
Come on.
Good.
Great.
Very good. Almost tap. 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 Yep, good move. Tap. Very good move.
Break. Break. Come on.
Right. Very good. So you can see tap, 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 tap. Nice try, buddy. Tap, 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 tap. Yep. There you go. All right. How much you bump it to?
32.
Good. So here you can see on that tap he turned and shot there.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got a good concept now. And then you went up to 32 when he drifted off there, and right away he's, oh, better go there, right? So it kind of shows you just how quick some dogs can learn.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason in that moment, he is like, I'm going to gamble doing this. But he clearly had a concept, because as soon as you bumped it to 32,
He knew exactly what
I'm
to do.
going, okay?
And that's kind of his personality.
Yeah, he
Like,
he
he
tests
has-
boundaries, but he
he-
knows exactly what
He knows what
wants.
he's supposed to do, but then he makes it, that's what we've seen with him.
Sure.
Before we, started working with you, is we could see him make that decision like, yeah,
Not
no.
going to do it, right?
Yeah.
And the reason is opportunistic behavior, right? So if you can attempt or get away with something, that's why I use that driving analogy, because most people don't, often than not, people don't go the speed limit,
Mhm.
right? Every now and then I'll get someone who I ask that and they'll go, yeah, you go the speed limit, right? And I'm gonna make a video on this as well, where I break down, if I've had, 50 consultations, like 45 of them don't go the speed limit and 5 do, is it gives you an idea of just compliance and opportunistic behavior. If you can get away with something and not have consequences, then it's like, you're gonna do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So for him, he tried to, avoid whatever, the task at hand, and then you bumped it, and he goes, oh, I guess he's not gonna get away with that. So then for him, it just reaffirms for him, like, okay, I can't, test the boundaries because they can make me do it. That's one thing about e-collar, is that it can make the dog make the decision to do something. And that's what makes it so effective, in my opinion, because every other tool either requires food, right, which is not really making the dog make the decision. They're doing it because they're going to get something.
Right.
Or a prong collar, but prong collar is you're making the dog go there
Right.
yourself.
Yeah, you have to physically do it.
Yes, here you're tapping, and that's why you're refraining from doing much yourself, because I'm making him make the decision to move from here to there using the pressure, so he thinks he's doing it.
Yeah, and when we tried to do stuff with him with treats and stuff, he would make the decision that like the squirrel is worth more than the
Yeah.
treats, or
Yeah, that's
Or
Or
if
if he
it
was
was-
really zoned into something, he didn't even smell it, like he was, his mind
it
was
just
so.
didn't matter to him.
Yeah.
It was-
correct. And I have a couple of cases right now, it's very interesting, that like, they're all about squirrels. And one of them, we were working on the down,
Mhm.
and the dog was staring at some other dog walking in the distance, whatever. And she kept staring at, he kept staring at squirrels. And then, but the dog was doing the obedience. Like the dog would down and sit, but still be looking at the distraction.
Right, yeah.
And he was like, man, he's like, that's crazy. He's like, he hears me even though he's tuned over there, but also he's holding it to the degree that he's supposed to. Like, so if
Right.
he said down, he wouldn't budge. And I said, yes, dogs can learn to have a part of the brain kind of paying attention to you while they're doing something else.
Yeah, I think that that's kind of the case with him with the cat, is he'll like if I do a heel command and walk around like the cat or something, he'll listen to me, but his eyes are completely on the cat the whole time.
Sure.
And sometimes I'll like tap him if I think he's staring too long or if he's too interested, but I don't know exactly like when to stop tapping him, because I don't want to like
Yeah, so
tap
yours
him
is a
every
little
time
bit
he looks at
nuanced,
the cat.
for sure, because you're trying to, it's not just stop staring at the cat, it's like coexistence,
Yeah.
is what you're trying to achieve, right? So what I would do is get a list of stuff together, just like behavior stuff, and we can set up a Zoom, so that we can talk about all those things, because that's easy, like just information stuff,
Okay.
where so then we get the most out of the in-person stuff.
Okay.
Okay, but yeah, you can set up the Zooms whenever you like. You don't have to wait a week, because it's just
Okay.
a Zoom, so you can set it up in between classes anytime,
Okay.
okay? But yeah, make a list of stuff that you'd like to cover, that's kind of question-based, okay? Questions so far about this?
No.
So pretty simple, right? This is probably the easiest thing to teach. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and add in the cue of place. So everything stays the same. You're gonna just be standing a little bit of a distance, place, then remoting, then leash if needed.
Okay.
We keep remoting until Blue is completely on the placemat, like he is here, okay? So even though he might be walking towards it, you're gonna still keep that pressure on until he's completely on, okay? And then what we're gonna add in is, I'm gonna have you start to walk around as well. Now, when you start walking around, you might see Blue like on the placemat doing this. That's fine,
Okay.
because place isn't anything specific. He doesn't have to lay down. He could sit, he could stand, or he could lay down. He just has to stay within the perimeter of place. So, growing up, my mom's gonna have friends come over. Jesse, go to your room so you don't embarrass me, okay?
Right.
So I don't care what you do in your room, read a book, play video games, whatever, just go to your room, right? So it's the same thing for the dog. I don't care what you do or what he does on the placemat, it's just go there and don't step off of the perimeter, okay?
So is that always the same place at home? Or
You can
can it
use
be
things
different,
differently.
like there's a place in the kid, or can you just randomly say place and make it up?
Right, so you do have to teach him familiarity with the object. So let's say you have the dining room, the living room, and the kitchen. And you have a, dog bed in the dining room, and the living room, you have two different dog beds, and then you have a kitchen mat in the kitchen, right? Is if you teach him place with each one of those things, you would do this process, and it would be quick, because he's already got the context of the concept. It's just now teaching him this is also place, right? Is that if you're in the kitchen and you say Blue, place, because it's the kitchen, he's gonna gravitate to the kitchen mat, okay? If you're in the dining room, he opt for that object. If he's in the living room, he would opt for that object, okay? Now, it can get super complex, where you could have 4 different placemats here,
Right.
and it's one word, but where a point dictates where the dog
Yeah.
goes, right? Obviously, you don't need, I don't think you need that level of training,
Right.
but as long as you teach him what place is within that specific context, he will learn to go there, okay? So then, like, let's say some of my clients carry like a blanket or a towel in their car, and they go to a restaurant patio and they pop it down to go place, right?
That's
Or
a
they,
good idea.
yeah, so they carry
Great.
something that's movable with them. So they go to a park and have a picnic, they don't want to worry about the dog, place. Go to a friend's house, oh, my dog's being a jerk, hold on real quick, place, right?
Right.
It's movable, you just have to teach them that place is now also with that object as well.
Got it.
And I've had people use ottomans. You could technically use a chair, but obviously he'd probably be sitting the whole time because it's so small. It's anything with the perimeter. So I had a client that had a really big area rug, and they're like, can that be place? I said, sure, it's just a really big place. And your dog can like walk around and whatever, but still cannot step off the perimeter of that place,
That's interesting.
So, yeah, so as long as you teach them the object and you reinforce the boundary of it, and for the dog, it really helps. Like, you couldn't say place here, and him to generalize, out of all this open space here, that placement doesn't mean stay in a specific spot. There needs to be something that creates a separation from him and the rest of the floor,
Okay.
okay? Question?
No.
So you're going to release him?
Release? Or break? Come on. Break. Alright.
And then you're gonna add in the word place, right? So everything stays the same, except now, and hold on a second, hold on, pull. Yeah, because he's gonna start doing it.
He's anticipating.
Is you're gonna just wait a moment, you're gonna cue the word place, then start tapping. If he starts walking with the place with the tapping, you don't have to worry about the tension. Otherwise, after you start tapping, you'll use a bit of leash tension to direct them over to the area, like you were previously.
Place.
Right there. Good. Yep. Right there. Then wait a moment. Now what you're gonna do here is going to start to walk around blue in a circle, kind of like you did with the stay. Tap, tap, tap. A little bit of leash tension. Tap, 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 tap. Good. Continue walking around. Try the other way. Good. And then back to the side. Good boy phrase. And break.
Break.
Good. We'll do that 4 more times.
Break. Come here. Place.
There you go. Very good. Yep, and then you can move, walk around. Very good. If only it was this easy to train kids, huh? Buy any collar.
Yeah, she wishes, right?
Oh, our kids have done that. We've all shocked ourselves using his. I'm sure you're not shocked.
Oh yeah, I've done it countless times.
Try it.
Very good. You go ahead and come next to the side. And the boy. Good, good. 3 more. Yeah, I used to have people feel it during the consultations, but now like a lot of them are via
Place.
Zoom. And then like the whole COVID thing, like
Place.
transferring stuff, whatever. But it hasn't been an issue. Like people have taken to it, no problem.
Does not like when I'm behind him.
Yeah, most dogs have problems behind. Pretty good.
Good job. Good job. Break.
Good, 2 more.
Come.
Break, break, break.
Come on.
Yeah, boy.
Place.
Very good. Excellent.
Break. Come on. Break.
Pull, 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 pull. There we go. Yeah, boy. And the last one.
Place. Place.
Very good. Excellent.
Just back.
And then what I'll have you do here is at the end, don't praise. You'll just walk across and like have a seat in one of those chairs right there. Right, tap, 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 and then, yep, the pressure, tap, 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 tap. Very good. Then back to having a seat. Very good. So, here just progressively making it harder. So there's 2 aspects to this command. There's the send, which is what you're doing, and then there's the don't move. Okay, so now we're transitioning into the don't move. So I figured if she sits down, he's probably going to want to go to her. Tip, tip. There we go. Exactly. That's what I want to see. I gamble he's going to want to go to you because when you're lower to a dog's level, like when people lay down, what happens? Their dog is over, like
Yeah.
wiggling, right?
Yeah.
So I use it to my advantage. And I go, okay, cool. That's going to give us a controlled context where we can induce a mistake on his part to correct him. So the first time you started tapping him, but he still went up right next to you, you gave him some direction, he went back, you didn't repeat, so that was correct. Then you reposition and set back down, and all of a sudden he thinks about it again,
Yeah.
Then you tapped him, and then he went back on his own without any need for leash tension.
Right.
Okay, so as you stack this and he gets a better concept of it, it's supposed to be that simple. So like the way we have our setup here, those two dogs had tethers. They had chain tethers,
Mhm.
right? And we do that, one, for the training process, but two, is precaution. So like, let's say we just taught the place command, right? Literally, we teach them, and then within the end of the, or by the end of the session, we go, okay, place, then we clip them, and then we walk away. And every dog goes, done, and walks off,
Yeah.
and they go, nope, right? But they can't go anywhere, because they're tethered. So they end up repositioning while we're working with another dog, right? And then 30 minutes later, you know, they go, what about now? And we're across the facility. Nope, can't do it now either, right? So then they go, wow, you put us here, and no matter where you are or what you're doing or what's going on, if we try to get off, this happens and we have to go back on again. And next thing you know, within a couple of days, they're going there and they're sitting there for 2 to 3 hours. Dogs passing by, dogs training, employees stopping by to say hello, walking away and stuff, and they're like, okay, this is what I do, is I just chill here.
Right.
So we cheat the system by having those tethers.
Uh-huh.
So if it's a dog that we know well, or we know has been like fully trained, like they'll be there without the tethers. Echo I trained a year and a half ago, and her owner, they just had a baby. So I was like, I haven't seen you in a while, I don't know where your obedience is at, so we're gonna go back to a tether. Gilly, who was a little black one, she did a 2-week daycare training with us, but we haven't seen her in like 4 or 5 months. So then we go back to the basics of like, we don't know where you're at, but just in case, and sure enough, they made mistakes, right? So we correct them and we work them back to where they were. So for the average dog owner, there's a couple ways of going about this. One is, like here in Chicago, it's like some places still have like those old school radiators, and since they're not on right now, I go, it's a very sturdy thing, you can put your leash on there, that becomes your tether, put the placemat, place your dog, tether them, and then go about your day. Cleaning, vacuuming, all that stuff, right? To test duration work. For those that don't have a way to cheat the system, we have to start, at step 1 and then work our way up. So let's say you're gonna watch TV for a bit, you have your couch, you can grab his bed, whatever it is you wanna use, plop it next to you, blue place, remote, he goes there, and then I can step on the leash, or I can just have it on my wrist or whatever, and I can just watch TV for an hour and a half or whatever. 45 minutes in, he goes, this is boring, I'm gonna go move, tap, tap, he goes back on again.
Right.
30 minutes later, this is boring, I'm gonna move, tap, tap, he's back on again. So then he starts to learn, oh, when they say place, it's not place break, it's place and I'm gonna be here for a while, and if I try to sneak off, I get corrected, but as long as I stay on here, nothing happens, right? So that's always step 1, is in our immediate vicinity, because if you try to place Blue like across the room and like clean stuff, the first week, you're gonna be placing them or replacing them all day long, right? So you're getting rid of all those annoying little breaks in command while you're next to him. If you're gonna get up, like to get water or something, what I do is I release the dog prior to getting up. Okay, so I go Blue, break, then I get up, do what I need to do, bring him back, place if I want to, or he's done, whatever. You don't want to get up and then release him.
Why? Just have like a good experience so that he doesn't fail, because I feel like he'd fail.
Why would he fail?
Because he'd get up with you, because his like instinct is to like move with you.
Yeah, right. So what you're doing is you're preventing a pattern. Because if you stand up and then release him, he's going to assume every time you stand up, you're going to release him.
Right.
So we reverse it, and I release before I stand up.
Okay.
Okay, so then once we get to the phase 2 part, which is he's still here, but then I get up and walk away, he's going to make a mistake, but at least you've done enough corrections that he's going to correct quickly.
Right.
But you're preventing that pattern of every time you get up, you always release me. Because then you have to fix that. Okay, and it's a pain in the butt. So instead, I just go, how about I just avoid it and release him first, and then I'll get up to do my thing and bring him back so he doesn't see a cue. Okay? Because it's interesting, you know, and you can already see, like, hear that whining in the movement here, is because he doesn't like being stationary for a period of time on your terms,
Right.
okay? It's funny because, like, when I work with my clients, you know, I teach things, but then you can see how people's brains work, because when they come back, they'll be doing something different, because they interpret it different, you know, and then that's why I always say, show me what you've been doing, because I want to see how does your brain interpret things, because I might have to tweak some things, right? And it's funny, because the one thing I always say is every time you call your dog, tap your dog. I say that always. And then come back class 2, I'm like, how'd it go? Like, oh yeah, great, I don't even have to tap it anymore. I was like, but I told you to always tap it. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, always tap it right now at this phase, because you want to make sure tap always means return, and you want to force that confusion, you want to force the deflect, so that we can clarify and make them return.
Right.
And they're like, oh, you said that? I'm like, yes. I say it to everybody, okay? So, so here with the place command, when he starts to get along, like, this is why we do this stuff, okay? So I have another client whose dog she's struggling with the reactivity. He's doing better, but she's still struggling with it. And the only time, and she's she uses it when she needs it type of people, okay? Which means she doesn't use it a whole lot. And I go, you want to use it a whole lot, because then you don't need to use it.
Right.
You know, so you're using it in the extreme, oh, my dog is being reactive, and I tell everybody, if you do it that way, it will be a forever problem. You want to be very generous. Tap, 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 tap for everything. So the dog goes, crap, I can't get away with anything.
Yeah.
I'll just mind my own business then.
You should tell Jesse your story about after the first time you walked him and took the collar off and laid down on the floor with him.
Oh, he like, so I like took his collar off, and then I took this off and put it on the floor, and was just like scratching him, and he was like looking at the collar and licking it, and then looking at me and licking me, and like, it, like, to me, I don't know, I can't speak dog, but to me it seemed like he understood that was how I was communicating with him, and he liked it, but maybe it just tasted good. I don't know. So, but like, he like, every time I like, this is near him, he like sniffs it and licks it, and seems to like it.
Sure.
But I do know that he knows it's this that's doing it, because if I'm not holding this, he tries to get away with more.
Even
As soon as he sees me pick it up, then he like goes back into acting it.
Yes, so I try to make it inconspicuous, but so a lot of people have that, what you're saying when he sees it in my hand, but also those very same people threaten their dog with it.
Yeah.
Where they're like, hey, right, they'll show them,
But
so
see,
the
we
dog.
haven't done that at all.
Yeah, no, he
Not
just
at
picked
all.
up on the fact that it's in your hand.
Yeah, he
Again,
is
it's
observant.
He's very observant.
Oh, for sure. Dogs are masters of reading body language. Like that's how they communicate.
Yeah.
So with a guy like him, so actually going back to that case with the reactivity, I just recently taught her this, and I said what we're gonna start doing, because her dog protests. So like she'll call him, and he'll like do the longest route to get to her, and then pick up sticks, and then chew on sticks, and then like spit it out, and then walk a little bit, and pick up another stick. And I'm like, man, your dog is blowing you off completely. Like your dog cares
It sounds like him.
at all, right? So I was like, we're gonna do this because she doesn't have any, like, she's new to the area, so she doesn't have any friends or anything, so nobody comes over. So then so I taught her this, and she's like, well, why would I need this? And I was like, because it gives you something to establish control within the home, so that you can press those protesting behaviors that you see only outside when you work with him. This gives you another context to push him,
Right.
for him to protest, so that you can overcome it and win those battles, so that outside gets easier.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is something, you know, and the longer period is what's difficult. So dogs' learning capacity is about 3 to 4 year old child, is what I say. So they can recognize when they can get away with stuff. Like I recognized when I was a kid, when I was a grandma, I could get away with stuff. When I was a mom, I couldn't. You know, with my mom and my grandma, I learned that grandma would override my mom, and I could get away with a little bit more. Okay, so dogs do that very same thing. So that when I work with families that are split, and some are for the e-collar and some are anti-e-collar, and the anti-e-collar people or side of the family wins, when they're around, the dog will listen, regardless, right?
We see that at home.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah, my dad. It's not like he's against it or anything. He's not much of a disciplinarian. He likes to give them chicken and feed them
Sure.
off the plates and stuff, so.
Which I don't care about because it doesn't really affect the other stuff.
Mhm.
But as long as it's, no one's proactively going, oh, don't zap him or
No,
something like that, right?
We're-
That's where things get dicey.
Yeah,
So if you go on the internet, very common things are like, don't feed dogs from your plate, you eat before your dog, you walk through the door
Yeah.
before your dog, don't let your dog sleep in the bed, like all these things, right? I could care less about that stuff because it almost always doesn't matter unless the behavior is centered around it.
right.
So like, let's say I'm working with the husband and wife, and when the wife is in bed with the dog and the husband comes in, the dog will guard the wife from the husband. So there I'll go, yeah, don't let the dog in the bed because nothing's gonna make the dog like the husband entering the space. I just go, if that's the case, then you don't get to be on the bed. It's a privilege.
Yeah.
So then, but that's very different. Most people, like, or most cases, or most theories, like with a dog like him, would tell you the same stuff, and then you'd be like, I did all that, my dog's still lunging and barking at the
Yeah,
neighbor at the fence,
exactly.
right? I'm like, because there's been no consequence for the behavior, okay? So here, that stuff is fine, doesn't affect this guy at all, unless that were to happen, if there were to be a conflict over like remoting, and he learned, hey, when dad was here, mom tried to remote me, and then dad said something, then it all stopped, and I got away with the behavior. Dogs will recognize that pattern.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions so far with this?
No.
So super simple to teach, very simple to practice. You have two concepts here. One is the sit, right? 2 to 3 minutes a day, if you did a session, you're fine. Once you start to feel like Blue has the concept and you can place him and you want to keep it on the leash first for a couple of weeks, in case he tries to boogie off, you have
Right.
something to step on, you have something to redirect him. We never repeat the command, we use the remote to make him, like you did earlier with that 32, to pop back on again, okay?
Can you use that 30-foot leash for that?
You could, but then if he's in the house and he tries to run off, he's gonna wrap 30 feet of leash
Yeah.
around stuff.
Okay.
I would say that more so, it's usually about week 3 to 4 if you're practicing regularly, where you get to the point of either no leash or long leash,
Okay.
just in case he makes a little mistake, whatever.
Okay.
This week, you're gonna always keep it next to you, okay? And remember, if you're gonna get up, you're gonna release him first, then get up, do your thing, come back, replace him if you want,
Okay.
or just let him be, okay? In terms of length of time, you can do whatever you want right off the bat. That's why I said make it easy. Do it when you're not gonna be doing anything. You're gonna, be on your computer for 2 hours at the kitchen table.
This will be the easy week.
Yes, this is super easy. It's funny because when I see trainers teaching place, they'll literally be sitting here and reboarding dogs. I'm like, I cannot do that. I'm not gonna do that. Like, just go there, stay there. Here, you can't go anywhere else anyway. I'm gonna go do other stuff.
Right.
Because that's realistic. You're not gonna be sitting here feeding your dog
Right.
every 30 seconds. You're gonna be wanting to do stuff.
Yeah.
And this is meant to be functional.
Right.
This is meant for, hey, I'm gonna go for brunch and let me bring you along. We're gonna be an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Mhm.
So right off the bat, if I always tell everybody, practice what's gonna be applicable to you, right? So if a friend would come over and they would be there for up to 4 hours, then technically you'd wanna practice up to that range, right? But it's not a hassle because you're just doing it as you're just doing your life anyways.
Right.
That would be like when you and Elliot or whatever you guys are outside or,
Doing whatever you have.
yeah, when your friend's over.
Yeah, and if you're gonna be outside, if you have a post or something, use
Yeah.
a tether, right?
But so if I place him and then he comes off the mat, I don't say the word again, I just tap him until he goes back.
Yep.
Okay.
So because that's what teaches him. So whenever you repeat a command, you're resetting. Okay?
Mhm.
So that's the most common thing that I see with trainers and people is they'll say sit, no, sit,
Yeah.
sit, stay, sit, right? And what happens is every time you say any command, it's a new command. So when I say sit, it means put your butt down, don't move. Okay? For Blue, if you say sit, he puts his butt down. Then he gets up and you say sit again. He's like, okay, and he does it again. And you keep repeating that process. Nothing has told him don't get up in the first place. Unless you just put consequence for breaking the command automatically. So here, when you try to break off and you tap him, he's like, oop, and right back onto the placemat he went, right? So he just learned If I try to overshoot this or sneak away, this goes off, and the only way to avoid it is not to go off. Okay, so that's super important. It's a tiny detail, tiny detail, but it means a lot to the dog. Okay, so it could be an hour later, an hour and a half later, he tries to sneak off the tap, and then people think, well, will he remember the place? I'm like, yeah, because when I tap him, what does he do? Goes right back to the place.
Well, I remember that.
Okay. Yeah. Now, as we advance with the training and we teach more things, one thing to bear in mind is a lot of people, when they do place, will say down.
Okay.
I don't do that because now it's no longer a down command. It's no longer a place command. It's a down command. Because remember, new command overrides old command. So when you did heel and you stopped and he automatically sat, still heel, right?
Right.
Stay. Then you moved, he didn't move.
Right.
New command, back to the side, heel, then you move, right? New command. So here, if you say place, then down, then he has to do this position on the placemat. There is no leniency of sit or stand. And the reason why I advise against it is because people forget. They'll send their dog, they'll down their dog, and then an hour later the dog will be standing up. And I'm like, why aren't you correcting your dog? It's like, oh, he's on place. I'm like, no, he's not. He's on the down.
Right.
You said place, then down.
Right.
So then the dog gets confused, because down is, you can't sit, you can't stand, it's that. Place is, just go here, I don't care what you do, just don't get off,
Right.
okay? So tiny little details like that mean a lot, and it's all about consistency when we're training, okay? Questions so far about this?
No.
Take a little bit of time here. You guys started 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. For this, in terms of duration, don't worry about, oh, is 3 hours too long? Like, just do what you have time for. If you
Okay.
do 15 minutes, you do 15 minutes. If it's like, hey, I'm gonna watch Titanic and it's a 3-hour movie, then do 3-hour movie, okay? It doesn't take much on your part. It's really just, have him on a leash first for the first couple of weeks, because when you tap him, you wanna make sure that he can't get away, and if he can, you have an easy means of getting to him. And then once you start to transition things more so towards the off leash, then you would be removing that and then correcting him, and he should have done enough practice that he knows just to go back to the spot itself.
Right.
Okay? Anything else?
No.
Where do you get the little, those?
Oh, these things?
Yeah.
These are Coranda. They're pretty pricey. I think I paid probably $200 to $300 for these. But you can use,
guys on the porch or on the?
these last forever. They don't rust. The pieces are replaceable individually, but that's why I bought them for my facility, because we use these all the time. We just hose them down and wipe them down and stuff.
So they look easy to clean.
Yeah, but they last forever. So it's an investment, but I'm like, I'm gonna have these for years.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't need to be anything fancy. Placemat, yoga mat, towel, blanket, dog bed, ottoman, area rug, anything with the perimeter.
Okay.
Okay? Anything else?
No, I don't think so. What's the best exercise we can do to get him introduced to the cat? Is there anything that we can kind of work on a little bit other than
Does he have the muzzle?
we didn't do the muzzle. We did the muzzle the first time and he did really well with it, but he was so preoccupied with the muzzle and not being able to bark and stuff like that I think he was distracted with that he didn't even pay attention to the cat,
Yes,
which is
it can happen.
good, but not
What I would
great.
do, because you need comfort with the muzzle to where it doesn't matter with them, is that is it a mesh or is it a basket?
It's the basket.
Okay, is I would walk him with the muzzle,
Okay.
to get him used to it, so it's just another thing that he wears. So it's just like putting the collar or the leash on him. Yeah, that's right. You want to get used to that, it's just another thing, okay? Because you're correct, dogs can be preoccupied more so with the object,
Right.
because it's on their mouth. And then the problem is, I've had clients have that same problem, and then they'll kind of jump the gun and do something sans the muzzle, and then they have an incident,
Right.
right? And I'll go, yeah, because now your dog knows the difference between muzzle and unmuzzled. Is what I do is I start incorporating that where he wears it randomly throughout the day. I pop it on him, or actually I would recommend popping it on him for all the walks, just to get him used to wearing it, to where it just becomes another thing.
Okay.
And then what you would find is more normalized behavior. So then when he sees the cat or whatever, he would be not so much here, but if there's any intention on the cat itself.
So, because he tends to put his head down and try
Paw
to
it.
put a paw up, do you correct that?
Yeah, so what I would do is you would put them on the leash. If that's the case, I would pop the muzzle on them for the walks at first. And so even though if you do food conditioning, you almost always have to do force conditioning, okay? But I always
That's what I'm finding with him, is he loves getting peanut butter out of it, and he'll let me put it on him, but if he has to wear it longer.
extensively,
Yeah.
So, if you could shoot me an email, because I have a couple more clients after you, is say, Jesse, send me the force conditioning video. Because
Okay.
I have two clients that they just showed up and the dog wasn't fully conditioned,
Mhm.
and the dog was tearing at the muzzle, so we used e-color
Yeah.
to fix it within the session. And then by the end of the class, the dog wanted nothing to do with fighting the muzzle
Right.
because they were being corrected. So, but they go hand in hand. Like I do food stuff to make it easier, and ideally it can work where we don't have to do force conditioning, but a lot of times that ends up being the case
Like,
anyway.
he'll put his face in the muzzle, he doesn't like mind it, but then.
Yeah, we got him
as soon as he-
acclimated to it enough to be able to put it on him and for him to wear it for like a couple minutes, but if we're
If
doing
there's something
anything,
else
then,
going on.
yeah, he always just eventually goes to try to get it off.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that I can send you those videos, and then what I would do is just take them for a walk with the muzzle on, and then you'll be able to do all that stuff, because you have to be moving when you're doing the exercise.
Okay.
Okay? So something simple this week. Hopefully we get a nice, clear day next time. But this is easy.